everybody. It's August 15th, the day before launch date for this new and exciting book, Raising Wild Ones. And I'm just really honored to be here with all you beautiful authors and mothers so that we can talk today about the impact that Body of Nine has on raising wild ones out in the world. I think that we're all committed to being really good, the best mothers that we can be for our children. And sometimes that can be extraordinarily challenging. And what I have found in my work with Body of Nine is that it changed everything when I found out my kids' natural numbers in terms of how I parented them. And so I am Susan Fisher, natural number 6, and I have 3 daughters who are an 8, a 7, and a 2, and they're all grown up in their 20s now. And I've known their natural numbers since they were 4 and 6 and 8. And wow, was that powerful for me? Because first I had, when you guess your kid's natural numbers, I had 1 right and 2 reversed. So I had the right 3 numbers, but and that just shows how hard it is to know your own children and to really understand what's driving them and motivating them and what's going on behind whatever's showing up in the moment. And so for me, the power of this, we're going to talk today about stories that we have of how our children have revealed themselves to us and shown us so much more than we would see if we didn't know. And so, my stories are endless. But the beauty of this for me was, they ask me every day to be a better person, every day, without fail. There's always something I can do better as a mother and support them and more strongly and be more aware of them. And that goes on day after day. And I'm just really grateful that I can hear it and I can be with it and I can accept it, even though sometimes it doesn't feel so great when your kid tells you you could be a better mother, especially when they're grown up. Just for you who have young ones, just wait. So what I'd like to do now is just have each person introduce, with whatever you have to say about writing we'll start with just your families and finding out their natural numbers and just tag the next person. And I will tag Jess because Jess is the publisher of this amazing book.
Thank you, Susan. Yes. So I'm Jessica Verrill. I'm the founder of House of Indigo Publishing. I support impactful leaders in having a greater presence through books, decks, children's books, things of that nature. I am a natural number 9, and my daughter is a natural number 4. My husband is a natural number 6, much like you, Susan. So it has been really fun getting to know a bit more about what that means. And I'm excited to share more as we're going along. So how about you, Abigail? You want to hop in? You're next on my screen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abigail. I'm a natural number 8. I have my beautiful son, my Scorpio son, who's a natural number 2. When I found out he was 2, it made so much sense because he would do something like if I'm watching a movie, he would come grab my face and turn it to his. And I was like, what are you doing? Mommy's busy here. And, he wanted all of my attention. Like if he wanted to play, all of my attention needed to be on him. And when I didn't know that, I was like, I'm right here. Well, what is happening? But now that I know, it's like, okay, especially when he's having tantrums, I get to his level, look at him, hold his face and say, hey, you're okay. Mommy's right here. And even just a simple act of just looking at him in his eyes has shifted so much. I remember telling my husband, I was like, eyes, keep that eyes. When he wants your attention, be all in on him. He needs that. And the part that scared me was with the natural number 2, where when they're in you, they're with you, it's almost like an entanglement kind of thing. I was like, oh my gosh, no, please, not in this world. But what I realized is that it gives me the opportunity to teach him about his own sovereign self. What is mine and what is yours? I don't need to take yours. I can be fully me and still be with you. And I'm grateful that his rising sign is Aries, because that will support that. And also the Taurus moon will like support that. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and my son. My husband is next to be identified. So I'm curious to see which number he is. Yeah. So let's see here. I am going to tag Wendy.
Hi, everybody. I am a natural number 2 and so darn proud of it. And my husband is a 7 and my daughter is a 6 and my son is a 1. And I think 2 things that are kind of profound that have really changed things. When my husband and I used to be on Zoom together, I would want the eye contact and he was kind of like looking over and I thought he was so rude, like during these Zoom calls, like you look distracted, you look like you don't care. And he was just synthesizing information. And so once I let go of the judgment that he was a jerk for not making eye contact, our relationship actually has really, softened in that area. And then with my husband, my number 6 daughter, I kind of don't have to worry about that one. She's just moving along. My natural number 1 son, I wish I had known his natural number when he was a baby or a toddler. I really do. He was so hard on himself and he was in so much pain. He had really big emotions and he was very insistent that things be fair and, a lot of the things about number 1. And I just wish we had been able to honor it more. And then I thought actually that he didn't want eye contact, but he does. And so I've been actually giving him eye contact recently too. Anyway, it's been very powerful. And I just wish I had gotten to know their numbers when they were really young and babies. So I'm passing on that word to anybody who's a young mom. Sarah, I'm passing it on to you.
There we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. All right. So I'm a natural number 4. I was just recently identified about a month ago, I think, and my husband and daughter were recently identified about a month ago. And my daughter's a natural number 5 and my husband's a 1. And for me, it's been very helpful just to know that the center of my energy, where it's in my hips, and being more conscious of that as an area that I know has always needed a lot of attention. So that's just affirmed for me, like, okay, really pay attention to that part of your body and take care of that and stretching and all that good stuff and other things. But for my daughter, learning that she was a natural number 5, I feel like I'm still discovering what that looks like and feels like, because she's so dynamic and she's so unique. And it's sometimes because she's very verbal, but she doesn't have speech that's clear. So you can't understand most of what she says. She's 6 years old. So it's been interesting just paying attention to the aspects of like her learning and how she needs to figure things out. That was actually the one thing that was very confirming for me is she always seems to want to know how things are being figured out or like how things work. That is, I think most kids curious, but there's like almost an obsession for her with how things work. And it's actually helped me understand more of why she keeps pointing and saying sounds to things. She wants to know how umbrellas work. She wants to know how electricity works. Now, instead of me just thinking she's babbling and saying stuff, now I get that she's asking how it works. And so we're having deeper conversations, even though I kind of understand half of what she's saying. So that's been really, I think, and she gets excited. That's how you understand her. She does her clap and gets excited that you've understood what she says. And so I'm getting that more often from her, which is so wonderful. And my husband as a natural number 1, that's actually been the most profound awareness for him. And just learning that dynamic of, seeing both sides, seeing the beautiful and seeing the shadow, or seeing the what's not great, and being so hard on himself, being really like, now I actually have a deeper understanding of his internal dialogue and how to not exacerbate that and how to, support it better, instead of being like, why are you always in that dark place? Like, I don't know, like I like to move through things quickly and he needs time to move in his process through it. And so it's just been honoring that uniqueness of his number one. Yeah, that's been really helpful as well. So I don't know what else I could say about that. Just that there's been lots of little epiphanies here and there. I'm trying to think of anything else to say, but it's been, yeah, just little light bulbs along the way. And I appreciate the daily pearls too. That's been helpful.
Thanks, Sarah.
And let's see, who has Tanya? Have you gone? You have not gone.
Hello, I am Tanya. I am a number 2, and I have 6 children. 5 energies: 5, 9, 7, 6, 4, and 8. My husband is a 3. So we have a very diverse and dynamic atmosphere at home. This is not home. We are currently traveling, so we are welcome to our hotel room in Washington, D.C. Oh, let's see. I've known Susan for several years now and have been so fortunate to have learned my own natural number as well as that of my 4 children at the time when I met Susan. And she has been so gracious to quickly identify the additional 2 as they came along. It has helped us to connect to each other in, I would say, a less judgmental way, a more free-flowing, easygoing way that we can all better support each other in being uniquely who we are and accepting of our differences, not just accepting, acknowledging and encouraging our differences. We have a very lovely family dynamic. This is the reality that you see right here. It usually looks something like this. And we're very fortunate to come upon the information that Susan has presented, just because it is always trying to be intuitive. It has kind of given us a definition, a place from which to acknowledge and confirm and go back to when there are struggles, when there are places where we can improve and be more understanding. And, any interaction with other people, that's a daily process, if not hourly.
Absolutely.
So, that ample introduction.
Yes, that's great.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So Shauna just joined us. Shauna, if you want to come on camera, we're doing introductions and Brittany's going to go next and then you'll go.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Steinbrueck. I am a natural number 6, and I am the partner manager for Body of 9. I have 3 kiddos. I have my little is a natural number 3. He is almost 8. And then I have a 12-year-old boy who's a 2 and a almost 16-year-old daughter who is a 4. I have only known their natural numbers just a few months, so I still have a lot to learn. But I can say that just within the last few months of knowing their natural numbers and understanding their need for eye contact, it has made our communication and just understanding them and looking at them so much better, so much easier to talk to them and be present with them, how they see it. I homeschool all 3 of them currently, but I've homeschooled for the last 11 years. So I'm no stranger to the wild one in them. So my little number 3 does not sit still. He couldn't sit still if you tied him down. And I just know that it's just how he is. And we do life, schoolwork on the move all the time. So just knowing they're all connectors and my husband and I are not, and knowing that we need to be, we need to recognize that when they're trying to talk to us, because as far as they're concerned, if we're not looking at them, they're not being heard. So that's probably the biggest change just within the family thus far, knowing their natural numbers. So.
Yeah, just two bits of background for the audience, which is natural numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 have a role of creating connection in the world. And they need eye contact from the rest of us in order to do that for us, to build some kind of powerful relationship. And so if you actually make eye contact with a 1, 2, 3, or 4, they will build a connection with you. It's a lovely thing. If we 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we use our eyes to see more than anything. And in fact, when we're making direct eye contact, it can turn off the processing in our brain somehow. So we can't do what you've asked us to do if we're actually looking at you. And so this is one of those very misunderstood pieces of information out in the world. The general thought is if you're not looking at me, you're being disrespectful on one half of the camp. And then the other half of the camp is, why are you staring at me? And so depending on which side of the camp you're in, because it turns out half the population are 1, 2, 3s, and 4s, we think. And the other half is 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So that's really 50% of the world needs eye contact. And the other 50% of the world is not as comfortable and doesn't use eye to create connection. So that's an important thing to know out in the world. If you take nothing else away from today, the other really, really interesting and relevant fact to this conversation is natural number does not repeat in families until you have more than 9 people. I'm curious if Tanya decides to have 2 more children, what will be the 10th? So I have a research project going on with Tanya, but I'm not sure if she's going to do this for me or not. So, but that creates a tremendous amount of diversity. It makes it very easy to misunderstand each other. And there's a lot of cosmic jokes out there, like in Brittany's family, she's a 6, her husband's a 7. They don't make eye contact. They like to get things done. There's structure in their lives. They're good at things. It's pretty fast moving, and feelings are really not brought into the equation very much. Whereas her kids, ironically, are a 2, 3, and 4, want to engage, want to do fun, focused things, move all the time, and show up, be here in this relationship with me, be authentic, be you. And those things are not things that Brittany and Steve inherently value together in their relationship. It's not that those things aren't there, but they're just not at like the forefront. So learning how to, and as Abigail pointed out with her 2 sons, I have 2 daughters. She did the same thing to me when I was little. Wham, mommy, look at me, and I was like, oh, and she would throw fits. And 2 children, when you don't anticipate their needs, they throw fits. So if you let your 2 child get hungry, you're going to have a fit. It is pretty much a guarantee. And that's not necessarily the same for other children. And I think that for the 2, it's because I anticipate your needs, mommy. I know I'm 2 years old, but I'm anticipating your needs. What is your problem? Why are you not anticipating my needs? And so it's this deep body-based like confusion about why and how we're being treated and treating each other from birth. I mean, actually it's when it's in the womb. I tell you, it starts in the womb. So I want to invite Sean. Are you available to come on and introduce yourself? We're saying your natural number and any story that you might have about that.
Absolutely. I am in the middle of trying to take care of my youngest here, so I don't know if I'll come.
You'll hear a lot on calls.
So my number is 9, and I've loved learning about the categorization of the numbers because the understanding of how each family member comes with their unique purpose has been part of my work. And so I've classified it differently. And it's been fun to tie all the pieces together with the number system. And so I've seen the uniqueness in each of my kids, and I can understand those differences and those nuances about them. And so I'm excited to just learn more about the classifications and give them another tool to understand themselves and to help my family understand too.
Well, thanks, Shauna. More than half of us are also authors in the book and Raising Wild Ones, and some of us talk about some of our stories. I would like to sort of open the floor up for if you have a story related to your kid's natural number, similar to how Abigail talked about it. And I know, Tanya, you have a 6 story. Is that something you're able to share? I've been wanting to hear your story about your 6th daughter.
Yes, I can share that. So my 6, Susan, I've told you previously, and maybe it's the dynamic that we have with more extended family members, not so much directly here, but my 6 is definitely the most misunderstood in terms of her intentions, what she's trying to accomplish by others, around us for the most part. And so I see this struggle, but also she has the tenacity to just face things head on. It does not seem to faze her, definitely in the way that it would have me as a 2. And so we have been doing a lot of discussing that she has such a strong force, and how to harness that force. And just the other night, okay, well, I'll back up a little bit. So we have been trying to come up with a animal, some kind of visual picture for her innate force that is just built within her, how to visualize the harnessing of this force and using it to pursue her purpose in life. And so just the other night, she mentioned her fascination with hummingbirds. And this is the first time I have heard that. So I looked up what hummingbirds represent. And I don't know if anybody has ever looked into hummingbirds, but it was truly fascinating to me, how much hummingbirds, the representation of a hummingbird, is very synonymous with her character. But aside from that, we've been discussing how she could harness this force. She is a young lady of words. She has many, many words and thoughts, and a great level of intellect to share. And much of it is observations, and that she just innately vocalizes. And it seems many people are not as comfortable with people who can abundantly use their words in a very non-judgmental way, a strictly observatory way. So we have been discussing how she can use her words to help her further her purpose in life. And one of them is that she is a singer. She has a beautiful singing voice. She wanted to try out for a choir, auditioned for a choir in Paris. And then we found out that they accept maybe 50 of the over 500 children that audition for this choir. And I had a choir lesson arranged for her, and the teacher was like, "Oh, she doesn't need to practice." And I'm thinking, "Oh, yeah, whatever." Who wouldn't? So she has such a beautiful way to use her voice. That being said, she was accepted to this choir, and so she gets to use her voice that way. But the power of her words. So we have talked about how to use them. I used the visual of like a wild horse for her, that you don't want to break a horse. There's the expression, right? You break a horse, and that's how maybe in reference to taming it. But, raising wild ones, we don't want broken humans. We want humans that are full of purpose and spirit. We need a driving force to navigate this whole system of life. And so we have just discussed on multiple occasions to use her words, because they're such a power for her, to use her words to drive her forward, and how to essentially give them bumpers to so that she doesn't end up, nobody wants that squashed spirit, that desire of, I always thought about this, but just never pursued it, or too many people told me, no, I couldn't do this. And so using her words as a driving force because if I were to use the parallel of a wild horse can take you a much greater distance than anybody could go on their feet. And they will do it willingly and do a very good job of it. But just doing it on our own is not possible. So for her to be able to use the visual of just giving an identity of sorts to one of our biggest struggles that just so happens to be our greatest strength as well, and how that can push us through the boundary that is presupposed on us to move us forward, and not to view it as something to hold us back. And Susan, you had said that as a 6, it's not as important to you what people think, which maybe that's where when she's very good at throwing out observations and whatnot, that then other people, not that these observations are unkind or negative, other people just seem to, there maybe a lot of words are often easy to just take as a way that they were not intended. And so
that's really at the center of, why these understandings are important. And Brittany, I don't know if you had these experiences. I remember my dad when I was a kid, I looked at my aunt's toes and I said, my God, you have the longest toes I've ever seen. And my father, he's an 8, he says, don't make personal remarks, Susan. That is a terrible thing to say to your aunt. I'm like, what's wrong with it? She's got long toes. In my world, they were the longest toes I had ever seen. And it turns out my toes today are as long as my aunt's toes. We're very alike and physically. But that, I remember that so vividly, and I could remember so many times where somebody sat me down and said, you shouldn't be like you are. It took me a long time to get my own self-permission back to being the powerful force for forward movement that 6 is in the world, and to own that without, sometimes it's very, very easy, as to get misunderstood or to walk all over other people without even realizing you've done it. And that's not as powerful as you could be. And so there's an art to every one of the natural numbers. And as a parent of each of those natural numbers, like, how do you honor that voice and teach? And I'll add one thing for you, Tanya, on this one. Just tell her to put love into everything she does. Tell her to think, okay, I love this person, and what do I want to say from that place of love? Because sometimes it is just as much fun to cause problems as it is to make things better. And 6s are very good at doing that too. And, making a joke that is true and yet hurtful. Just responding to the energy in the moment. And so that is, for a 6 child, that's supporting that the power that comes, their voices carry, they're physiologically loud. They run fast compared to other people, and supporting that as being a fantastic thing, not a bad thing. But how do you temper it, right? Without closing it down. And I think that's, one thing you do beautifully. And I've witnessed that over and again with your children, is each one of them is unbelievable in terms of how well they're supported and what they're accomplishing. Tanya's kids don't do average, as far as I can tell. They only do incredible. I'm sure they do average in some things, but maybe I only hear the incredible. But it is amazing. And to create space for your children to be who they are so they can be incredible is really, to me, what Body of 9 is about. Thank you for sharing that story. Hi, Gabrielle. You want to pop your camera on and say hello? Guess not yet. She'll be back, I think. So anybody else have any stories that they want to tell?
I wanted to share the connection, like what I'm seeing between my son and I. He's 3, but since he was, since he could walk, let's just put it that way, he's not afraid of the world. Like watching him, like when we go for a walk, he gives me like heart palpitation. Like he's not afraid to just go for it. And he would turn a little bit and look at me to make sure I'm there. And then he'd just go for it. He's a leader. He's a natural leader. And, we're able to connect that way, where it's like, I respect that you don't like me telling you what to do. I respect that you have your own process right now, even though you're 3 years old, his thing is like, he would come to me and be like, mom, cool down. I'm like, oh, no, you didn't. So it's like leader to leader, connection. But at the same time, there's that heart-centeredness, it's that, and it brings me so much joy. And I just hope that I'm able to continue to nurture that, because we need more leaders that way, more leaders who are able to connect deeply with their clients, with people, and help them to connect with themselves that way and not be afraid of their journey of themselves or their paths. Like, whew.
Well, yeah. And the other thing to really learn here is the dynamics. So your 8-ness, he knows he's safe. He knows you've got that, and you wouldn't let him do something that wasn't safe. There's no way. So he has this incredible container of safety that you give for him, and this, awareness of his body. So the other thing that's interesting is 2, 4, 6, and 8, the even numbers, are more body-based. They generally experience the world in terms of the wisdom that their body is giving them in some different degree. And 8 is the most body-based. 2 is very body-based in terms of they think a lot about how they want to feel about something. What do they want to create? It's very forward-moving, very engaging energy. And so they're in the moment, but they're also aware of what they're trying to create. What is the felt sense of what's coming? And what do I need to do with this relationship and this connection in order to create that felt sense? And that's an interesting thing to try to parent, because they want your full attention. And that's challenging for us 5, 6, 7, 8, 9s too. We want to get our stuff done. And they start always first with the connection, where 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, we start with what are we working on? And so just remembering to stop and start with the connection is something we really, really can learn from our connector children when we're not connectors ourselves. Hi, Gabrielle. Everybody's introduced themselves, but we're starting to tell stories about, the experience of our own natural number or those with our kids. And would you like to introduce yourself, your natural number, and if anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, I'm late. I see I'm on my phone anyway. I'm sorry, I had a lot of trouble getting on. So yeah, I'm Gabrielle, and I'm natural number 5, and I'm from Quebec. I'm outside of Montreal, and I work as a therapist, specifically with couples. So I think my natural number helps me a lot in having insights and having an intuitive feel of what's going on in a room when I'm working with my clients. But I feel I had like an aha moment this week that because a lot of my energy is up here, like what's really helped, I can just, so much can be happening. I can just capture so much that's going on and I get all scattered. So getting out into nature is really, really important for me, and just getting grounded. Otherwise, it's just like I can just get carried away and like become really ADD and overwhelmed. So I don't know if that's, what you've heard from other natural number 5s, but anyway, that's been my experience.
Well, it's an interesting thing that you bring up. It's like nature is good for all of us because It's real, right? And it's solid and it's there, and it doesn't ask much from us in terms of other than to survive when we're in nature, right? And it's alive and it breathes, and it's such a powerful grounding force for all of us. But what's interesting is how we all feel when we're out in nature and how different that is. So, 5 grounds up, which is such an interesting thing. Through that connection up, you actually feel down as well. And whereas for 6s, when we go out in nature, everything is vibrating and crazy alive. There is no stillness out there. It's almost noisier for a 6 than sitting in a city is, because the energy is buzzing everywhere. But I've heard 8s tell me that it's very still and that they can feel the breathing of the earth and the breathing of the leaves. And it was like, oh, wow, really cool. So, I mean, maybe it's just fun to describe what's your physical experience of nature. What does it feel like to you? Jess, why don't you go first?
Yes. It is one of my favorite places to be. And it is I'm able to, when I get out in nature, I'm able to really come back within myself. I'm able to process everything because I always have so many ideas and so many information that so much like that's coming to me where it's like, oh, this and this and this and this. There's always so much that it really helps me process things. It helps me get really clear. It helps me really tune into what is for right now, what is not, maybe what's not even mine. And it helps me let go of the rest. So it feels like a really, it's incredibly supportive.
And what does it feel like in your body? Like you're standing out amongst the trees. What's the sensations that you feel?
I feel like I'm a part of it all. I feel like I am moving with the wind. I feel like I can feel the rain coming through me. I just feel like I am it. Like it's all me.
Yeah, that is the definition of 9's experience of being part of everything.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Wendy?
I think that there's just a connection. So it's like, oh, I'm with the trees and oh, I'm with the bird over there and kind of whatever I'm seeing and feeling is the main focus. But I think, so I guess it really is just kind of connection. I'll like, oh, this air is delightful. But then kind of that goes away and it's the next connection. So yeah, it's not like it's this quiet, silent walk where everything else disappears. There's a lot of energy, I think, when I'm with nature.
And you're looking for that opportunity and connection with each piece of it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the, I've heard from 2s that because that connection is available with everything that's out there and it's not demanding, it's not asking for anything back. It's just available. That's what I've heard from 2s.
Mm.
Sarah, how about you? What's your experience being out in nature? What does it feel like with your body?
I can definitely draw from it, having been there for the last week. And I live in the city, so it was just nice to really remind myself of, for me, it's like a body regulation. I really feel like it regulates my nervous system, my breathing. I can feel the clarity. There's just a lot of clarity, and similar to what Jess was saying, there's like a sorting too of just like the things I can let go of, what's not mine to process. And yeah, I just notice everything. I kind of notice all the sensations, like the smells, the sights, the tastes, and it kind of all just happens at once. It's not like I'm focusing in on it. It's just a very sensory experience. And yeah, very internal. Just there's like, it's interesting that you have talked about the 4 being like the shaman, because there's this shamanic feeling. Like sometimes I'll naturally hear a sound and I'll just like tone in my body, and I'll just catch onto a sound in nature and I'll just tone while I'm walking, or I'll feel inspired or something will drop in, like a download or something very clear. And I get a lot of that when I'm in nature. So that's my experience.
Yes, nature does seem to function as a clarifier for all the natural numbers. That seems to be a consistency, a place where we can hear the messages that we don't hear when we're in the mess. Abigail, how about you? What's nature feel like to you?
I think you said it beautifully. It is, when I'm in nature, when we go camping, is peaceful. Like, just, I feel like, doesn't matter if there's people around me. Like, let's see if I can put it in words. Like, I can feel the animals, even if I don't see them, like walking around. Sometimes I'll point like this a deer over there, or like I can feel them walking around. I can feel the rivers flowing, and it's like I'm breathing with nature. And the cool part, especially, this is like between me and my husband, it's like when we leave nature and we're coming home, like my husband, he freaks out. He's like, oh my gosh, we're coming back in the city, like, oh my God. And for me, I'm able to bring nature with me. I don't feel like nature parts from me. Like, it doesn't matter where I am. Like right now, sitting here, I can tune in and boom, it's like I'm in nature, sitting there camping. So yeah, it's like this. Yeah, I don't even know what word to call it. I almost want to say I'm one with nature, but I don't even know if that's it. Yeah. Well,
words are distinctly inadequate for describing the differences between us. But it is always very interesting to me how we use the same word to mean something very, very different. And that's one of my future explorations that I want to do in terms of language. We'll do that we'll do another one of these. This is really fun. I really appreciate it. So anybody else have any really cool stories or anything that they want to share? I'll open the floor back up again. I actually have one. I'll tell one about my 7 daughter when she was about 10 years old. She was an avid reader, and she would read all kinds of books, probably a lot that were, more a bit mature for her emotional processing level. She was a very intellectually smart kid. And she was reading the Lemony Snicket's books, which are actually really scary books. There's some very scary characters in there. And she got so frightened that she'd left her body and couldn't get back into it. And 7s can do that anyway, but that's one of the features of being a natural number 7 kid. If you have one, they're challenging. They can actually leave their bodies and live so much in their imaginations that becomes where they think they are. And until a young 7 actually understands that could be very frightening in the beginning, because it starts to awaken in them around 8, 9, 10 years old. So I didn't know what to do. So I called up a friend of mine who was a 7. And I said, what do I do? And she said, we happen to have 2 8s in the house, my older daughter and my younger daughter's best friend. And she said, just get them to lay on her and push on her body and cover her with pillows and make the room completely, like, we put blankets up over the windows. We created this cocoon of safety for her so that she could come back into the house and into her body in a way that was safe. And for me as a mother, it was so freaky. I was so grateful that I knew that she was a 7, because honestly, otherwise I would have thought that she was having some sort of nervous breakdown or something was terribly wrong with her. And because I knew she was a 7, I realized, okay, this is something that's happening as a result of her waking up to her 7-ness and this amazing skill and ability that 7 has to unembody themselves and travel out into the universe to bring the unknown here. And so it was, as I said, frightening on the one hand, but I was like, oh, okay, this is what I have to support. So I didn't have her read scary books for quite a while. I just said, it's probably not a good idea until you understand how to manage your relationship with your imagination and this possibility, because it's not imagined to them. It's not imagined. It's real. And so that realness was the piece that she had to learn and how to stay tethered here in this world. As a 7, it's one of the things you have to teach your children is how do you stay tethered here, even when it's boring here, or, because people are very boring to most sevens. And so how do you support the uniqueness of your child and what their needs are? And so this was an example for me with my 7, like, whoa, what's going on here? And I've had experience after experience with my kids, even to this day. My natural number 2 daughter, she's been in Canada, and her interaction with the world, I can't give her advice at all anymore, because she's learning grown up 2 out in the world, and Susan is a 6, doesn't do grown up 2. So, just letting my 24-year-old natural number 2 daughter experience life, even though I want to protect the daylights out of her. One of the challenges for 2 out in the world is they suffer from disappointment. They have this felt sense of what they want to create, and they have this vision of what's possible for the world. And when it doesn't come out the way they envision it, they get very disappointed. So much so that, it can take them down a terrible rat hole. And my daughter's had more disappointments this summer than a person should have in 3 months. But I know that this is the universe, helping her grow up. And every time I've tried to help, I've only made it worse. And, as a parent, there is a point at which you have to go with your children, recognizing that there's nothing you can do. You just don't experience life the way they do. And to say your idea of how it should be is not actually going to honor or help them in that moment. And that is so hard. It's just so hard. Doesn't matter how old your kids, whether they're 2 or 30. So those are 2 stories where once again, knowing their natural number changed everything about how I parent them, even 20 years later. So I don't know. Britt, you want to say these stories about your boy? Oh, Wendy, go ahead.
Well, it's just interesting when, as a 2, I remember 2 things profoundly with my parents. My mom, I have 3 older sisters, and we would turn on Tijuana Brass and we would all dance in the den. And I just remember just really yearning to my mother, watch me, watch me, watch me. Like, that's my memory as a child, dancing, saying, watch me. And then my father did not get angry, but the one thing he would say, that to this day, he would say, I'm disappointed in you. I'm very disappointed in you. And that was like, if he had just yelled, that would have been okay, but the disappointment. So those 2 things, watch me and disappointment, are just very aligned with, my experience as a child. And then with my daughter, Samantha, who's a 6, she has come into her own in terms of waking up and unleashing. And she's really a force for women to stand up. And she has been so overpowering, and it's so hard to hear because she's so forceful. And recently she was in a relationship where this person, I don't know their number, but she has softened. And it's just such a relief because she still has the intensity, but there's some sort of maturation that she's speaking to us in a way that we can just hear it more. So it's interesting that number 6 intensity, it's hard sometimes. And the softness allows us to hear what she has to say just a little bit easier.
And to me, that's the love piece. Getting the heart and the love into 6 is what really makes 6 incredibly powerful. And this also brings to how the natural numbers interact with each other. So there are 3 in the head, 1, 5, and 7. And those are the odd numbers, the least embodied. Then there's 3 in the chest, 3, 6, and 9, and they work with energy. So we're talking about 6 here. 6 really benefits tremendously from the combination of 9 and 3, because a 3 helps focus the directional energy on joy. And then 9 reminds 6s that what they're focusing on is actually pretty damn small, and they really need to expand their perspective. Because, I often joke it's actually pretty accurate. 6s can feel like they're a ping pong ball in a hot air balloon pinging around in this little tiny balloon. And the 9 is out there floating in the air and holding all this space and watching this poor person ping around in a balloon. And then the 6 looks at the 9 and says, what are you doing? Would you get busy? And the 9 is being very busy, but the 6 doesn't perceive it. So when we know these things, it's a part of it, bringing it back to the book, as Jessica as a 9, as the publisher of this book, and then bringing the body of 9 with my forward energy into the book, we had to find a dance that would work to support everybody that's in the book. And that was Jess was holding that piece. Everybody in the book, whether they want to get identified or not, needs to be held in this book. And everybody's perspective needs to be held. And so she held and created the container for this. And I just gave her bits and pieces of forward movement for each of the people. And so you see that I'm excited to see how you laid the book out, Jess, because it is, it will have that 9 feeling to the book, and it'll have the 6 bits in there, and then it'll have all of the pieces of all of the authors and the beautiful wisdom that they're presenting around how they see we can raise wild children, children that are supported and seen. And so these conversations are, to me, so important, so we can start to learn the differences between us. It's like, oh yeah, Jess and I are nothing alike, but I think she's amazing. And it's very important that we work together because we can create so much more, but not doing this the 9 way or the 6 way, but to do it the 6 and the 9 way, and then actually having all the energies being involved, because obviously all the energies are involved in everything. So I want to open it back up. Britt, did you have any stories of awareness in your family?
The disappointment that Wendy was talking about with the natural number 2, my middle, I have learned over the years, I do not promise anything ever, because if I cannot deliver it for some reason, even if it's not of my own, the disappointment it's harsh. It's an all day. I'm very sad. I'm blue. It just crushes him. So, and also both my 2 and my 3 are very much watch me. And so my 2-year-old, my natural number 2 loves to skateboard. Getting good, not the best, but getting better. And he has no fear of making friends or creating relationships. So he likes to go to the skate park. I do not like to go to the skate park. I do not want to go to the skate park. I avoid the skate park. It's not my favorite place, but I do it for him because that's my fear and not his. And so, he's been, he'll go up there and he can talk with anyone. He can make friends with anybody. And which is a little scary because some kids up there are way too old and doing things that we should, not be seeing or hearing. But what do you do? Can't live in a bubble. But at the end of the day, both my boys like to sit in the backyard with my husband and I, because summer in Montana is like 3 weeks long. So you take full advantage of it whenever you can. And they always want you to watch them constantly. Mom, watch this. Mom, watch this. Mom, watch this. Kickflip. Mom, watch this. And it's so hard to have a conversation with my husband because they literally have to have eyes on them at all times. If you are not looking directly at them, you're not paying attention, And for me and my husband, that's hard because we're trying to have a conversation, but we're looking at them. So that's been a learning for me for sure, but definitely the disappointment is hard with the 2s, making sure that I almost don't tell them of things that we're going to be doing in the future, because if it doesn't pan out for us, then I pick up Camden pieces off the floor because he just does not handle disappointment well at all. So yeah, a little bit of the 2-step.
So we've been yammering away here for an hour. It's been absolutely lovely. Let's just close with everybody saying a little bit about what was it like to write your chapter, and what insight did you get while you were writing your chapter for Raising Wild Ones? Who would like to start?
I can start. So, well, first, I just wanted to touch upon what you were saying about the 6 and the 9 coming together on this project. It was really helpful for me knowing that you were knowing that you were a 6, and my husband is also a 6. So at times when you were coming and you're like, we gotta, I was like, oh, I'm used to this energy. Like, this is normal for me. I just breathe and like let it pass through and take what I need and integrate it. And it's been really helpful for me to know that about my husband. Whereas at times I thought, him being very 6 and focused on like, well, what about this? What about like, I felt like in a way it was like bursting my bubble and bringing me down in a way. And then I realized, oh, that's actually just his strength that he's bringing in. And so having that realization and then working with you on this project was just so conducive to that harmony and that flow. And so having that understanding was really supportive for me as the project manager within this also. So I just wanted to touch upon that because it's just like, what can it help? Like the more everyone knows, and I can look at some of the contributors, like Safran is not on here, but she's a 9, and you'll be talking to her and her face is just like
neutral.
And I know I do that too. And that's a 9 trait. And so, having all of this has been really, really supportive. So thank you for coming and bringing your energy and magic to this project. It's really, really exciting. And for me, writing was, similar to how it always is. It's all of the possibilities of, I can feel everything and I can see everything. What is going to have the most impact and how can I bring it down? And it's also fun and challenging at the same time, because as I'm reading everyone's work that comes through, I have to give myself enough space from it so that I don't feel like I'm being influenced by what I read from somebody else. But it's an incredible book. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So I'm so excited that it's out in the world tomorrow. Oh. Thank you.
I'll pop in and I just want to say that for me, it was saying yes to writing in this book. Was I just had an intuitive hit. I got to do this. I had no time in my schedule at that time, and then I went through burnout. But in spite of that, I took time to start writing, and the process was really about, like, there were so many different stories and ideas and things that were coming through, and it was like honing down and really tuning into which story wanted to come through with the book. So it was a very healing and really great process. So I'm very grateful, and I'm very excited to read all your chapters.
I'll go next. I think the most challenging part for me was also seeing the possibility of so much that could be put in there, and having to pare it down. Because with 6 children, I see the interactions. Whoops. I see the interactions between them and the successes that we've had and the things that haven't worked as well over the years, and how we, within our household, we do a good job of supporting each other. And so how to present that information, because it's so valuable and could be so well used in so many places in the world. What Susan is, the information that you have, Susan, to share is so valuable. And I hope that people anybody who reads the book can just take small nuggets from every author and say, I can use this, or yes, I have been in this position, and just to incorporate that into their daily life. And I don't know, because we all need encouragement and that feeling validated, and especially feeling empowered, because there's much to be done.
Beautiful. How about you, Sarah?
The writing was just a big internal healing process for me. So I knew before I wanted to tell the story of the birth. And then when I saw the call for the author in Raising Wild Ones, to be an author in Raising Wild Ones, it was also just an immediate, like, my body was like, yes, I have to do this. I had no idea how I would have time for it. In fact, Jess, you knew I had no time for it when I said yes. I had been working for somebody else, and I was figuring out how to handle that, which was way too much work for me. And so then when I ended that contract with someone I was working with, I finally had this space to now really sit with and process it. And because the birth experience is what I wanted to share, because it had so much wisdom in it for what I've been learning with my daughter as a special needs kid, as someone who has brain injury and genetic condition and all this uniqueness. And so it was just a real journey of how to tell that in a way where it's concise and not all over the place. Because my mind, I had the same thing, like just so much. And I realized I process in such a non-linear way, so that it really helped me to focus my thoughts and to articulate and do justice, I guess, what I want the world to know about Addison and what her legacy has begun to be in some ways. So yeah, it was just a healing journey for my husband too. To actually read it was really hard for him because he hasn't processed the birth in the way. So it's been good for us to visit it in that way.
Oh, yours is a beautiful story, Sarah. I really appreciated reading it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what a lovely day. What a lovely way to start the day or end the day for those of you who are ending your day. Thank you all for being here. And I'm excited to see where this book goes out into the universe.